And we're back. So I've went ahead and adjusted my diagram to include an ASAV at the egress, and that's going to be what I VPN into in later videos. And also I added Active Directory. In this video, this is what we're actually going to be configuring today because that's going to be acting as my NTP server, DNS, DHCP, certificate authority. So let's go ahead and start on that now. So the first thing I did before I added any server roles is, besides giving it an IP address, I went ahead and made adjustments to the name. Automatically, when you spin up a new server, it's given some gobbledygook name that it just creates automatically. So unless you want to have to go through and make changes to DNS and AD after you've already created the server role, I would recommend you change it right away, and at that point you can start creating the roles, and it won't be a problem. So another thing I also did is in Server Manager, I went to local server, and since this is a lab, I'm not really worrying about where I'm going to be browsing, so I turned off IE's enhanced security configuration. That's the one that kind of annoys the hell out of you when you go to it. You go to a website and it starts saying, "Are you sure you want this? Are you sure you want this? Are you sure you want to go to this site?" And you have to sit there and manually click 1,000 times to be able to have every aspect of that site come up. It's a security enhancement to make sure your domain controller or a server is not compromised by browsing to the wrong website. But again, this is a lab, and I don't necessarily want to be bothering with that. Another thing I also enabled was remote desktop connection, so I can RDP into this, later modules or videos. So right off the bat, and I gave it an IP address. So everything in my on my LAN is going to be in the 10.1.100.0/24 range. So this is going to be .40. So let's go ahead and start adding roles on this. Excuse me. A little bit sick today, so I'm trying to keep my head up. So let's go ahead and so first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and create an Active Directory domain. So let's go ahead and add AD domain services. Yeah. So I'm going to pause the video while this installs. So Active Directory finished installation, so we're going to go ahead and configure it now. We're going to go ahead and promote this server to a domain controller, and we're going to create a new forest. So this is going to be securitydemo.net, or whatever domain you want it to be. I'm just doing this one. Give it a second. And by the way, I also didn't add a DNS service because it already goes ahead and creates that as you're walking through this. I'll show you when I'm done, but let me go ahead and create my password for the restore directory services restore mode. It's fine. And if you guys hear any noise in the background, that's my cat. He's kind of wandering around and randomly meowing. So give it a moment. It's just doing its checks right now. So as you can see here, it's saying that it doesn't see a DNS server. It's giving me some changes I could do if I wanted to be more secure. But again, this is a lab, so I'm not going to really worry about it. All prerequisites passed successfully, so it's going to go ahead and install the domain services, the DNS and the directory services role after I click install. So I'm going to give it a minute to do so and pause the video while it takes that time to do it. All right, I'm about to be signed out because it's going to be restarting. So give it a moment while it does that. And when it restarts, I'll be in the securitydemo.net domain. While I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and go over. So I have a jump PC I like to use. The idea of this is I've got two NICs on here. One's locally, one NIC is attached to the LAN, and the other is a IP address I can remote into from anywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and start configuring this because I haven't even configured it yet. I believe I installed. Yep, I already installed everything I needed. So this is a another fresh server. It's just for jump purposes. Give me a moment while I start the configuration here. And it's a lot of what I did in terms of turning off IE and security enhanced. The IE enhanced security configuration I'm going to do over here as well, because again, this is a lab and there's going to be stuff I need to download from the internet, and I don't want to be annoyed to death while I do so. So give me a moment to configure that. I also most definitely want to have remote desktop connection, and let's go ahead and start IPing this. So I've got two NICs, and if I remember correctly, I think the first one is attached to the WAN, and the second one is the LAN. So I'm going to first configure the LAN and give it the same subnet range. So let's go ahead and go here. 100, 45, 255, 25, 25. I'm not going to put a default gateway on that because I don't need to, but I will go ahead and let it use this guy as a DNS server. Next, I'm going to go ahead and give it this. So 10, 95, 61, 68, 255, 255, and this is just an IP address for my purposes, so I can remote into it, and go ahead and do that. So give me a moment. My AD server just restarted. And you'll see that AD and DNS has been configured now. So as I was saying before, DNS will automatically be configured and started. I'm going to also go ahead and add DHCP. Reason being is I'm going to have that wireless. I'm going to be having that wireless configuration that we're going to be testing in later videos. So DHCP is definitely necessary there. So let's go ahead and make sure that's configured as well. I don't think this is going to need a restart, but go ahead and have that. And while I'm at it, I might as well join this guy to a domain, the jump PC. Well, first thing first, I'm going to change the name of it to something a little more manageable. So jump PC, so I know what it is. Change that first. It's probably going to make me restart. Sure thing. And then, so we've got DHCP, and I'm going to configure that for that subnet. And since we're going to be doing VPN we're going to be using VPN later. I'm going to make sure it's a different block than my VPN range, so I'm not going to have any issues. Okay. DHCP. Perfect. So let's go ahead and create a new scope for DHCP. And this is going to be, name is going to be VLAN 100. This is going to be used for new wired and wireless clients. So the start IP range is going to be 100. Let's go ahead and do 150 to 199. And this is, of course, going to be /24. Not going to worry about exclusions. Let's give it 1 hour. Because this is, again, this is a lab and I might be testing different things and wanting those DHCP packets during that time. So default gateway is going to be my future CSR. So it's going to be 254. Parent domain. Not a problem. Perfect. And we will go ahead and activate the scope now. So DHCP scope is already created at that point. And jumping back to the jump PC real quick, I'm going to go ahead and join it to the domain. So again, going back here to the properties of the PC, and we're going to be domain is going to be securitydemo.net. Now it's going to restart one more time. Perfect. So the last thing I'm going to create now is going to be my I'm going to add certificate services. So that one is going to be right here. Add features. We're going to go ahead and select all of these guys right here. And restart if needed. I don't think this one will require a restart, but test it out. And also a good thing to do before you get too far down this path is make sure your time is synced correctly. If you're using an NTP server or something, or anything of the like, make sure it's the right year, date, time, because it's going to be a pain if you have to go back and generate a new certificate, or ICE and AD's CA server are unsynced. Even if you change it later, you might have to wait for the AD or ICE clock to catch up, because nothing like having your CA server be a couple hours ahead and find out that ICE is getting the correct time, saying, hey, this is invalid. The timestamp is hasn't even happened yet. So you'd have to wait or just regenerate certificates, which again, for a lab, I like to cut out the extra time, just do it as quick and dirty as possible. So again, and again, in production, you're fine with this. You're probably going to have everything set up on NTP, but I'm trying to do this as quickly as possible and not lead you into any mess ups that require you to just go back and redo work. So taking a look at this, AD certificate services is installed. So now we have to go ahead and go through and configure it. So one thing I also like to do is go to users and computers and make sure that I have an account that will be used for the IIS service. In reality, you probably will be using a service account for this, but this is, again, a lab, and I just want it quick and easy. So you have to make sure that there's a user or service account with IIS_IUsers that will be used for this. So the first thing I'm going to configure is just the certificate authority and some web enrollment stuff. I'll go through and configure this afterwards. It's going to be a enterprise CA, and it's going to be a root CA. In production, you're probably going to have a CA server that you initially bring online, issue certificates to sub CAs, and then take offline. But and that's the best practice to do. You should not have your root server connected and continuously connected to your network, or not have some sort of certificate hierarchy. But in your lab, you don't really need to adhere to those rules unless you just really wanted to try it out. But in this case, I'm going with quick and easy over probably what reality would be. I'm going to change it to SHA-256 as well, because I like to be a little bit more secure than SHA-1. This looks good. Validity period of 5 years. Configure. So this will generate the root certificate, and this, that's kind of what signs that's the private key that will sign the certificates that are issued to everything else. And I'm going to go ahead and configure the other services now. You had to have a root certificate in order to really configure these correctly, so that's why I do them separately. So it's asking me for that account with the IIS users. Oh, there. Go ahead and go through. Again, and again, in production, don't use your administrator account, and hopefully you don't have an administrator account named administrator, but and that you have escalated accounts for just administrative duties. But it's a lab, and I'm not really adhering to the normal rules. So this is the CA server, CA certificate that we created in the last step. The first 3 options that we created, or we configured. So it's using that for the remaining services. So give it a moment while it goes ahead and configures that. I'm just going to pause this video while it goes ahead and configures itself, so I don't take a lot of time just doing nothing. All right, I'm back. I'm going to go ahead, before I move any further, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that remote access is working on here real quickly. So let's go ahead and join this other user. There you are. Oh, it would help if I could type today. All right. First, let's go ahead and make sure remote desktop is enabled. And my administrator account can get in. And just for purposes of I'm going to turn off the firewall on this one because it's just a jump box, and I'll be doing I use it for TFTP and other things in my lab, so I don't really want to have to worry about firewall issues trying to get into it. So I'm going to try to remote over to this guy real quick. Demo. Creator. Awesome. So from there, I can jump over to this guy and give you guys a little better of a view of what I'm configuring. So let's go ahead and remote desktop in my remote desktop connection. Hopefully I didn't fat finger that password again. A little on the slow side. It's odd because it's locally connected. They're on the same hosts. All right, looks like I'm in. So we're back at our domain controller now, and I'm gonna unpin this guy. So it disappears. So let's go ahead and start configuring some of our certificates, shall we? So I'm going to go to Certificate Authority. Go to Certificate Templates and then Manage. I'm going to make a copy of this user certificate template. This is going to be for group policy, so it's going to be GPO user. Not going to allow the private key to be exported. We're going to add domain users. And for domain users, we're going to allow read, write, and auto-enroll. And subject name will be, I don't need to be email. Just want UPNS or DNS name, I think will be good. Just double checking. And one other thing I wanted to do was I wanted to make sure that I change the extension really quickly for application policies. I want to make sure that I have that I also add server authentication. So add here. This is just what the certificate can be used for. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy from workstation authentication, and it's just going to be just GPO computer. Again, domain computers, we're going to do read, write, and auto-enroll. We're going to also change this to include server authentication. Let's go ahead and use the UPN as well. Another thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and create a PXGrid certificate. Reason being is we will use this in later subsequent requests. So I take a copy of the web server, or the subsequent video, sorry. And this is going to be our PXGrid template. Don't care about auto-enrolling. I definitely don't need that. Excuse me. Make sure this isn't set up for auto-enrollment for anything. Perfect. Extensions, we want to make sure it's got a server and client for the application policies. Client authentication. Perfect. And only other thing I believe I need to make sure is that it says supply and request. So we're good to go there. So I'm just going to close this out and go to New, Certificate Template to Issue. Give it a second to pop up, and this is where we, under our certificate templates, we add the guys that we just picked, or just created. So now they're available for use. Now from here, we're going to go over to our group policy and make some changes real quick. Oh, there it is. Group policy management. Now you can go ahead and have a group policy for a specific OU under here, or just an overarching one. I'm just going to go ahead and create a new group policy for this. We're going to call this security really quickly. And this is the reason why we have a group policy for this, is because reality is you don't want to touch every single client and issue certificate manually. It would be a nightmare to manage that, and also there's just easier ways to do that. If you have a AD domain, you can do it automatically and have the endpoints NIC card configured, the certificates pushed down, and it should be seamless to the client. And in fact, it helps improve user experience, because you can go ahead and configure in there that they should connect to this SSID automatically, and to them, they never have to enter a password. They're just, by signing into their computer, it's allowing them to use that user certificate to jump onto the wireless, and they never have to select anything if they don't want to. So let's go ahead and make some changes to this. So the first thing I want to change is I'm going to go down to Windows Settings, Security Settings, and let's go ahead and start configuring our wireless, our wired network. So I'm going to create a new wired network. This is going to be .1x. This is the .1x configuration for corporate PCs. And under here, this is where we configure our 802.1x settings. So I'm going to leave it at user or computer authentication. I also like to make sure that we enforce the 802.1x settings. And under PEEP, first thing I'm going to do is make sure that my AD root certificate is what's trusted. And I'm going to, EEP chap is where you're using, where you're, in that tunnel, you're tunneling the username and password, and that's the credentials that .1x is authenticating against. But by changing it to smart card or other certificate, what it will do is it will use EEP-TLS, so it's using a certificate as the inner authentication method. And so it's a little bit more secure, and it's using, instead of just a simple username and password, it's using cryptography to authenticate against that certificate that's been issued to the client. So I'm going to go ahead and, again, we're going to trust these root certificates, or these root CAs, which is the same one, but one's for user and one's for computer. So I just click both of them and let the rest decide. Okay, so we've already configured that, and now we're going to do one for creating a wireless policy. So this is going to be corp. Actually, security demo corp. This is the policy for my security, or my corporate wireless. It's going to be infrastructure and security corp SSID. Actually, security demo. I'm going to add that as the name of the SSID. You can, this is one of those things for better user experience. Connect automatically when the network is not in range. Connect even if the network's not broadcasting. You can choose a couple different ways of doing that. And over here is the same thing as we configured before. Enforce 802.1x settings. Okay. PEEP. trust our root certificates, change it over to EPAM TLS. Again, there we go. Done. But we're not really done. We have to actually configure a few more things. So this is a computer configuration. So we're gonna, first thing first, we're gonna go ahead and make some changes to client services. So this is, are we going to allow it to auto enroll for certificates? This goes back to that template we created and that we issued that allows domain computers to automatically enroll at the beginning of this video. So with that, we're gonna, if we hit enable, it's gonna automatically, when they join or next time they update their group policy, they're gonna go ahead and automatically be enrolled with a computer certificate. So I'm gonna do that. One other thing I would want to make sure we change in this is for wired.1x to work, there's a service in the background called wired.autoconfig that we need to make sure is already is running at all times. So let me take a look. It's system services. Okay, system services, and by default it's turned off. So you'll never see an authentication tab on your wired NIC settings if you don't turn this on. So see wired autoconfig. Let's go ahead and define this policy and automatic. Done. So next thing, we're going to get the user tab automatically have a certificate issued to them. We're going to go through to the user configuration right here. Go to public key policies, and the same thing, auto enrollment. So we're going to enable that and go ahead and renew expired certificates, remove revoked ones, update certificates that use certificate templates. Easy there. So I think that's all we have to do for right now. And we're going to click enforce. So that's starting to be enforced. And then go ahead and go to command prompt and GP update force. Awesome. So let's go ahead and test this out really quickly. It's possible I may have missed something. I'm only human in that regard. So first thing I want to do is start testing out core PCs, see if I can actually join them to a domain. So bear with me. I'm going to actually configure the ports they're on, or try to figure out which ports they're on. So I'm going to change this so you can see it a little bit better. All right, so we're going to enable. Show interfaces description. Let's see if I labeled it. Probably not. So let's go to the first core PC. Just check the NIC there. I'll run this guy. I haven't joined it to the domain, obviously, because we just configured domain services. We'll start. Gonna be a little hard to have an IP. It's probably getting DHCP. That's why. So looks like it's on 16. So let's go ahead and give us a static IP really quickly, because I want to make sure that I know exactly what my IP is and my IPs are in my lab. So 10, 1, 100. I'm going to call this one 51. 25, 25, 25, 0, 254. And let's go ahead and make sure that the port is configured. Interface G1. Interface G016. We'll see really quickly if this is the right port or not. Yep, see it became unplugged. Do show run interface G1/0/16. So there's nothing configured on this port, so we're going to go ahead and give it the description of corp PC, switchport mode access, switchport access, VLAN 100, spanning tree, port fast, no shut, do write mem. All right, it's on the same. So let's go ahead and join this to the domain really quickly. No IP conflict anymore. We're going to go ahead and domain security demo.net. We're going to jump back to the domain controller as well and create some test accounts. Right now I only have administrator set up. All right, restart now. So while it's restarting, let's go ahead and go back here and create some users. Actually, some groups too. So let's see. Let's go ahead and create a group for employees. One for vendors. Demo. Let's go ahead and then create users. So first we'll create me, if I can type my name. Oh. So just give myself a username. No, I don't want it. I'll change password. Password never expires. At some point, I'll probably add a ESA into this, but for now I won't. And let's go ahead and make sure I'm part of the prize domain admins and domain admins. Okay. New user. So it's going to be demo user. Demo user. I don't want them to ever have to change it. Oh, no. We're just going to go ahead and make sure they're a member of demo and maybe domain admin too, because I can do some stuff there. Let's go ahead and create an employee and a vendor account. So I don't know if anyone else watches or likes comic books, but I'm a little bit of a nerd, so I'm going to go with comic book characters. If anyone's ever been to a Cisco EBC executive briefing conference in San Jose, you'll notice a lot of people who do those demos have the same kind of interests, because you see a lot of Tony Stark or things like that there. So we're going to go with Jessica Jones, and she's going to be our employee. Probably the worst employee in the world if you've ever watched that Netflix series, but we're going to go with it. And I'll make sure that she is jjjones@securitydemo.net, member of, employee. Tony Stark, T Stark. T Stark at securitydemo.net. And he's going to be our vendor. Perfect. Awesome. So let's go ahead and exit out of this guy, minimize it, and see if our certificates automatically get sent down to both the user and the computer. So first we're going to do JJ Jones, enter the password. I'll go ahead and close this guy. So there's a couple of different ways if you want to take a look from the endpoint side. Open up an MMC and go to add, remove, snap-on. Go to certificates. First thing we want to check for is user certificate. And since it's not a domain computer problem, or admin is probably not going to let me do that, but check more than the user certificate. But right now, let's see, I don't see any personal certificates. So let's see, let's do a GP update real quick. GP update force. So it's not showing the user, but let's take a look over here real quick. So let's go back to certificate authority. And under here, if there's issued certificates, we'll see it. And if they've been declined for any reason, we'll also see that. So issued certificates, we don't see anything's been issued so far. We see a computer certificate has. That one probably did. And let's see why something failed. So DNS cannot be added, subject name. And this is what our, sorry. This is probably the Jessica Jones one right here. Sorry, I'm having a problem with this thing wanting to expand itself. So that was my bad. I think I actually I put DNS under the username and I didn't need to do that. So going back here, this is just me changing my template real quickly. Give it a moment. So we'll manage that. We'll go to GPO user. And again, this is good for troubleshooting because you get to see kind of, so I put DNS name. Didn't need to do that, so I'm going to go ahead and put remove that for at least for the user side because the user is not going to need a not going to have a DNS name. So let's try this again now that we've corrected that. Let's see if it issues the certificate this time when I do a group policy update. Let's see. This time it issued it. So yeah, that was the issue. So you see there, group policy user, and strange it's not showing here, but oh, there we go. Jessica Jones now has a certificate. And if we go look at the network adapter setting, we should see our .1x configuration pushed down. So these settings are managed by your system administrator, means basically group policy. But here we see it's PEEP, EPTLS, and it's trusting the AD certificate authority server. So yay, we've at this point we've gone through and we've configured certificate authority. We've created the group policy. We've created a couple users, joined some things to domain. So I think this is a good stopping point for the first real labbing video. Thank you guys so much for listening, and hopefully that wasn't too much of a mess as I was kind of jumping around to different things.